Welcome back to Andy Cooks, the show where me, Andy, professional chef, 20 years, brings you along on my home cooking journey. Because as we keep talking about, just because you're a good chef doesn't make you a good home cook. And today we're going to talk about a really requested style of cooking, which is like the midweek one pot wonder. This is my go-to dish when I'm time poor but want to eat something tasty and healthy. I'm sick, or I just have a bunch of veggies in my fridge that I need to use up. So the amazing thing about this recipe is that it isn't a recipe. And I encourage you not to use a recipe with this one. This one is about using up what you've got, using up what's in the fridge, and kind of making it your own. Whether you like fish, whether you like vegetables, whether you want to eat vegan for one night, whether you enjoy sausage, whether you enjoy chicken, anything goes. And we're just going to run through the technique in this video rather than giving you a specific recipe. So while I have purchased a couple of things for this one, a lot of the stuff I did have in my pantry, and I'll talk about that when I run through the ingredients. But first of all, if you can please do me a favor and just go and hit that like button, because it helps me out heaps. I love making these videos. The reaction I'm getting is really positive. Also, if there's anything you want me to cook or expand on further on one of my other short format videos, let me know in the comments below and I'll be happy to oblige if I can. But let's get stuck in. So this is what you're going to need. So let's just start with pantry staples. So tin tomatoes I always have in my pantry, always. They get you out of a pickle all the time. I don't love this brand, but it's the one that I buy. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. And beans. So I always have a plethora of different types of beans in my pantry. I really like the big fat butter beans. I like all beans, I think they're delicious. And they're so quick and easy, right? Like, don't be afraid to use canned beans. Some things can really well. Beans and tomatoes are some of those things. By all means, if you've got foresight and you want to cook your own beans, go ahead and do that. And there's plenty of delicious beans you can cook yourself, but you've got to remember to make sure you soak them first. So that's why canned beans are amazing, is that you can eat these pretty much straight out of the can if you need to. And then a couple of other pantry staples. Garlic, there's always garlic in my pantry. Oh, I forgot the onion. Where's some? Oh, sure, I've got some onion. Onion, there's always onions in my pantry. Salt and pepper. Get good quality salt, helps out heaps. Good quality olive oil. So those are pantry staples. And then there's always herbs going off in my fridge, always. So this is a recipe to use up those. So I've got some basil that's seen better days, we'll use that. And I've got a bit of rosemary and thyme that we'll use up today as well. And then veg, so this was all just in my fridge, kind of not in its peak, but perfect for this dish. Some of these like bellhorn peppers, these aren't spicy at all, they're like sweet. Some asparagus, seen better days, some pretty limp broccolini, pretty average looking zucchini, and a leek. The leek's actually not too bad, but anyway, it was in my fridge and I needed to use it up. And the point of this is to use this stuff up. There's nothing wrong with this veg. You wouldn't want to eat it raw because it's not like kind of lost its crunch. You wouldn't want it in a salad or anything like that. But this dish, we're just going to cook it all down in a pot. It's perfect. Like, it's absolutely perfect, and there's nothing wrong with it. And I'm a big advocate for using up all your food. I get a lot of comments because I obviously cook a lot. Well, I post a lot, but we eat all the food that I cook. Nothing goes to waste. It all gets eaten. This is where you can really choose your adventure. I'm a big fan of chicken thigh and chorizo, I should say, or I'll get slaughtered in the comments. I think that their flavor combinations work really well, and these are the two things that I did buy to make this video. But you can leave this out altogether, there's nothing wrong with that. You can replace it with some prawns if you've got some prawns, if you've got some fish left over, some salmon's really nice in this. But like I say, this is a real choose your own journey. Use up what you've got. Don't feel like you have to go out and buy something for it. I could literally have made this without purchasing that. Just use the stuff here, and that's a delicious, wholesome, and fulfilling meal. So let's get stuck in. So we're just gonna break all these veggies down. And I don't think you need to finely dice anything. I think it's it's a rustic dish. Let's keep it rustic. You can use a red onion. You can use some spring onions if you've got some spring onions or scallions that need to be used up, shallots, whatever. So I'm just going to dice this, nothing crazy. One thing I didn't talk about just before was spices. So I'm a big spices fan. I think they kind of really can amplify a meal like this into something really tasty. And my three go-tos, and the 3 ones that, I mean, my pantry is always full of spices, but the 3 that are always in my pantry is cumin, coriander, and smoked paprika. I think that trio works extremely well together. This is the second prototype of the Andy Cook's dough scraper. I get a lot of comments about these dough scrapers, so I thought, well, maybe I'll put one together. But the first one, I wasn't super happy with the wood that they used, so we've gone back for another one. Anyway, garlic, as much or as little as you like. Garlic done. You notice I didn't kind of go crazy on that, and I don't want to make a puree. We're in a, you know, it's a Wednesday night. We're just trying to get dinner up. Peppers next. I'm going to keep these fairly chunky as well. You want to try and keep your veggies kind of all roughly the same size. And that way they should cook a bit more evenly. Zucchini. Broccolini. Asparagus. And you know what? I don't need this leek, and it's still good. So I'm not going to use it. I'm going to take that off and put it back in the fridge. Herbs are so expensive at the moment, it would seem sacrilege not to use it up. Babe's going, it's Babe's birthday today. And I'm not even cooking her a fancy meal, I'm cooking her a bloody one-pot wonder. Sorry, babe. All right, time for the meat. And the chicken thigh. Marylands, we call them down here, which is a boneless, skinless chicken thigh. Cut this stuff up reasonably small. Done. And that's all the prep done, and that literally took me 10 minutes. Like, no lie, yeah, I can get that done in 10 minutes. Now, I do fully respect that. Unless you're a proficient chef, you probably can't get that done in 10 minutes, but that shouldn't take more than 20 minutes, even if you're not super comfortable on a knife. So it doesn't have to be perfect. You just want to get stuff roughly the same size, and that way it'll all cook relatively evenly. But you know, for a midweek dinner, it's pretty easy as far as prep time. So now we're going to cook it, and we're going to use one of these. Now these things, these big Dutch oven, cast iron Dutch oven, these things are invaluable in a kitchen. I don't even put mine away, it just lives up there because I use it so much. You can bake bread in this, you can make stews in this, you can boil pasta in this. I'm a big fan of the theory buy once, buy right. And that was taught to me by my mate Wolsey. I think she kind of uses it for shoes and bags, but anyway. But I'm a big fan of it, you know, like, you know, these things are expensive, they're not cheap, but they're worth it because you will buy it once and you'll have it for your lifetime. And if you look after it, it will go on generations. So if you can, you know, invest some money in one of these. If you don't have something quite as durable or big as this, not to worry, any pot will do. You know, you can make any pot work. The beauty of something with a thicker base like this is that it distributes the heat more evenly, and you won't have as many hot spots, which means less chance of stuff burning. So if you've got a thin pot, like just a super thin pot, make sure you don't leave it too long or it will catch on the bottom. Anyway, let's start cooking. So a large pot over the biggest element you got, get that heating up. One of the key tricks or the key things with any pan, but especially cast iron, is do not put anything in here unless it's hot. If you do put something in here and it's not hot, it will stick. There's no question about it. Good amount of olive oil, you want to cover the bottom. Use less if you worry about the calories. Olive oil is good for you. Oil's nice and hot now. In goes our onions and hard herbs. Oil was a bit too hot, to be honest. That's all right, it'll come down in temperature pretty quickly. So seasoning, and one thing that I think a lot of home cooks don't get right is seasoning, and I'm not saying using salt at all, that goes without saying, but you need to season all the way through your cooking. You don't just season at the end or just season at the start. Sausage. The reason you put your sausage in next is because you kind of want to render some of that fat out, get that flavor from the fat and the rest of the dish. We'll put our chicken in after. Now, if you're not using meat, if you're just doing a veggie one or a fish one for that matter, do your onions, then you do your garlic, and then you start adding in your veg. Now, you don't need to be super particular, but you want to add your veg or anything into this pan one at a time. And the reason you do that is because you don't want to overcrowd the pan and take the heat right out of it. So now we've got a sausage in, we will let that render down a bit. Then we'll put our garlic and we'll start adding our veg. olive, you've got a chili seed on your nose. In my last YouTube video, I yelled at olive and I left it in there because when I'm filming this stuff, there's like a camera here, there's a camera here, there's a light over my shoulder, and there's a small French bulldog always under my feet, and it's so frustrating. And I guess it's my fault because I should have trained her better. Some garlic in there. So, ground coriander. It's about a tablespoon, I guess. You don't need to measure this stuff. Go with your gut. If you put too much in one time, you'll realize it and won't do it the next time. Same amount of cumin. Smoked paprika also gives a really lovely color, nice rich dark color. So just to reiterate, if you're not doing meat or you're doing fish, you'd do the same thing. So garlic, onions, then garlic, then your spices, and then you start adding your veg. But next we're going to add in our chicken, and we're going to season it. Alright, you can see our chicken's starting to get some colour on it. Scrape up any of that fawn that's formed on the bottom. Time to start adding veg. So, peppers, and zucchini. Probably should have done that one at a time, but it's not that much of each there. Let that come back up to temperature. And then this green veg, we are actually going to cook that. We're actually going to put that in once we've got our tomatoes in there, and we're basically effectively going to blanch it in the last sort of 10 minutes of cooking this. So we'll leave that to one side. It's starting to look good and it smells pretty good. So at this point, it's time to get our tomatoes in. So I got a big can, it's an 800 gram can, or you can use 2 small cans or 1 small can, depending on how many people you're cooking for. In that goes a bit of water. Helps clean the can out. I'm going to season it again. Alright, so once we've mixed it, we're going to bring this up to a simmer. And then we're going to put the lid on, turn it down low. I'm just going to simmer it for 15 minutes to cook that tomato out, make sure the chicken's fully cooked. Alright, 15 minutes up. Looking good, looking good. We are going to dump our veg in here, and normally I would leave the basil to, no, I still will, actually. I was going to put it in earlier because it's a bit average, but we'll still do it the proper way. I think it should be alright. Stir that through, let that come back up to a simmer. Right, now that's back up. Beans. So all I've done is drain those beans out and give them a rinse under water. And all the beans really need is to be warmed through. They're already cooked, obviously. So we'll give that like 5 more minutes. And then we'll eat some. And this time, or right before we're about to serve, it's a fantastic time to shove in, if you've got a bag of baby spinach, or even lettuce, like whatever. Any soft greens, just shove that through there and mix it through. It's a great way to use those up too. Let's get that basil in there. Serve some of this up. There it is. It's delicious. You know, not everything has to be a 5-hour gourmet meal. This is just how I cook at home when the cameras aren't on and I'm in a hurry. It's healthy, it's tasty, it's never the same, and it should never be the same. You should be using up what you've got in your pantry. It's so important that we reduce our food waste. Thanks again, legends, for watching. I really appreciate it. If you haven't already, please smash that like button, chuck me a comment below, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, and I'll see you again next week for another recipe. Peace.